Welcome, guys. Another episode, Tampa Fishing Outfitters Live Fishing Report. Gonna notice we're a little light today.
A little light.
We've got Travis in the house, myself, James. While we've got, I think Jason might still be on the water.
Yeah, I don't know if he's still on the water. He's probably getting finished up. But,
probably cleaning the boat with a toothbrush.
Yeah.
All right, got it. Cool. Well, we're going to talk some fishing tonight. I think the plan is to talk a little redfish action we've all been getting on. I saw some rods over here from Bull Bay that we're going to talk about a little bit later.
Yeah.
One I'm particularly interested in as we get into April and May. So we've got some cool stuff to show you there. We're going to recap Tighten the Drag tournament that was over the weekend a little bit.
Send me that blue mouse there.
There's the blue mouse there. So we can get some comments going. But in the meantime, guys, we're going to kind of get started with, some fishing reports, I think, between all of us. I know you and I, busy week last week and through the weekend. And it was busy on the water, man. There was some traffic.
Busy is the word.
Yeah, busy is definitely the word. I think it's still no secret that we're baiting up at the Skyway, and we don't even need to try to keep it a secret because
anybody that travels, the Skyway or 275 over the bridge in the morning, they get the best bait report.
Yep. You know what's crazy is coming over the bridge, coming from where I come from, Brandon. I'm shooting down 75. Hopping on 275 and coming over the bridge, and just with the way it's been, I kind of been doing it earlier and earlier. So I'm coming over the bridge at about 6:45, usually still dark.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't remember ever seeing as many nav lights and anchor lights on at that pier when it's dark.
Sure.
I mean, we're not getting bait till it's light. So,
right.
But it's everyone's going to claim their spot. So, it's been busy. But it's
funny you say that. I mean, and I don't ever drive much during that time. I'm normally coming from the marina, but I actually met one of my clients over. They got a new CV.
Yeah.
And I rode over and met them at Terra Verde Marina, and I saw the same thing. That was I think it was Saturday or Friday. It was Friday.
Friday, yep. Mm-hmm.
But I mean, here's the upside to bait. So, we're fortunate to be able to normally catch bait most of the year.
Yep.
There's a handful of days where, we can't get white bait or can't get anything, to use as bait. But the Spanish sardines have been a nightmare,
Part of it,
not only at the bridge, but several markers are starting to show up. And with that comes the kingfish and the Spanish mackerel and, the jacks and et cetera, et cetera. So, but what I was going to say was I've noticed in the last 3 or 4 days, those Spanish sardines, for me, have sort of been reduced a little bit.
Oh yeah.
I've not been getting as many Spanish sardines as I was, say, last week.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if it was because of the moon or what's going on, but we're going to talk a little bit about redfish and some things that have been happening, and not only with bait but with the
fish,
the game fish, and so. I'm a big believer.
You're back.
Big believer in the moons.
Yeah.
And how things change, and we had a little a front that came through, and that kind of stinted the spring transition. And I think in the last 3 or 4 days, it's sort of getting back on track.
Yeah, and we talked about that a little bit with that moon and some things you saw because we were fishing around some similar areas. I think Friday. And, so it's an exciting time right now.
Right.
I'll tell you what I observed when you talk about those sardines. What I saw that was different from a week ago is, there's a reduced number of sardines getting stuck in my net, but I'm also seeing those birds working out further from the bridge. So they definitely spread out. That can be said.
Yeah, and like you said, I think that's what happens is you get these fronts move through and everything gets pushed into each other, because there's been whitebait at the bridge for a while, and maybe we'll do a show about catching bait techniques, because there's a few little things you can do to help,
especially how we work our machines and how we use
work the machine, work the net. A lot of guys throw a 3/8 net. For me personally, I've been throwing a 1/4-inch net. What I've been able to do is throw a lighter 1/4-inch net, sort of get on top of even if I throw on top of the sardines, the rate at which that net sinks, a lot of those sardines will get out of the way, and I'll get to the whitebait on the bottom, kind of ambush the whitebait. So that's one of the things I've been doing to avoid getting as many sardines as a lot of the guys I see out there throwing the heavier mesh or the bigger mesh nets. And of course, let them just shake them out. Jason, I know he's been using a lot of those baits as dead baits, dead baiting a lot of snook and redfish. So
snapper,
mackerel, there's nothing wrong with it. But for me personally, where I've been fishing, what I've been doing, my style of fishing, I've been wanting whitebait, greenbacks.
Whitebait.
So that's what I've been. One of the little techniques I've been doing to get rid of them. The other thing is a lot less chum.
Yeah.
Those Spanish sardines will get in your chum slick. They'll come in the chum slick, and once they get hung on it, the game over.
I talked about that. Gosh, who was I? Anyways, I forget what day it was, but it wasn't a guy. It was just somebody next to me, and I'm hitting the whitebait pretty good. He's hitting the sardines really good, and I notice he's chumming hard, or whoever's on his boat is. And I said, hey, slow that chum down. You'll start to see those sardines on the top of the water column disappear a little bit, and you can really just let that net get to the bottom a little bit cleaner.
Right.
And after about 10, 15 minutes of chumming, I'm leaving. But I saw him throw the net and just full of whitebait. So that's definitely true. I actually like when the boats next to me are chumming when that's going on.
Right.
And I'm between them. Cleans things up a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, that is a good tip, and that's something I've picked up on definitely this season with the number of sardines that are out there.
Yeah.
But it's a good thing to have them. As much as we hate them and we dog them and we don't want them in our net, and we don't want to clean up the mess that comes with them. It's a sign of some things that are happening.
Yeah, it's definitely a signal or a sign of transition in the bay. We start getting this bait moving in. Like I said, for the guys that are, coming up, the Old Salts, King of the Beach tournament coming up, things are shaping up for that.
Yeah.
If we get a nice little stint of weather, there's going to be some heavy fish weighed in this tournament, and they're probably
heavy ones already.
not going to be far away. They're not going to be caught far away from where this tournament's held. So that's exciting.
There was a lot of boats, doing 3 to 5 knots with downriggers out around the Skyway Channel. I know that.
I can believe it,
weaving
man.
in and out of them.
And the sardines and the bait situation is definitely what's keeping those fish there, or what's got those fish, keyed in on that area. So. If you are fishing the Old Salts, King of the Beach, you might want to look around, from, I'd say, Egmont in. There's going to be some fish pushed up inside the bay.
Oh, yeah.
That would definitely be contenders, especially for, single
engine division. Yeah.
For sure. So
you get snotty weather, there'll be a lot of people fishing inside the bay.
You ain't lying. A few years ago, maybe 2 years ago, in this spring event, we were I was running out getting bait on some of the local markers. It
was a couple years ago. Yep.
And there was 42 yellowfins and all these big boats, man, running up.
that.
And I won't tell you exactly where they were all fishing, but I know the area they were fishing, and historically known to have a lot of Spanish mackerel.
Mm-hmm.
Where there's a lot of Spanish mackerel, there's some kingfish hanging around with them. So, you know,
we'll have to talk some kingfish in the next few weeks as those numbers start to.
It's coming. It's coming. I've got my first mackerel trip, not this week, but the following week, midweek. We're gonna do a mackerel trip.
Mm-hmm.
And some guys that fish with me every year, and that's what they want to do. They do a big fish fry for the church. So
Yep.
we go out, get them a bunch of mackerel, and that they do it that way. So looking forward to that, man. It's always a nice change of pace.
Yeah.
I will say that, you know, the inshore bite has really not got me excited to go out in the bay because it's just been that good.
Yeah.
And so the way I normally run it is I'll fish that inshore bite till that water temperature gets up to a level where those fish really want either a very strong tide or early morning, late afternoon, and I'll spend the middle of the days, you know, out there in that bay fishing rock piles or, you know, some deeper water off the ledges and things like that.
Which works out perfect because a lot of times I'll prefer a slower tide or a slack tide to do that. So, I mean, we're coming in that time of year, like you just touched on, is, you know, work the tide, go and fish your fish, your snook, your redfish, your trout even. But when that slack tide hits, you know, you've got options still.
Right.
So, you know, let's talk a little bit about that. I know you've been on some redfish. You've been on some big snook. You know, anything different? You've actually been on fish. You know, we've been talking about it, especially redfish for some time now. I can go back to 3 or 4 weeks ago when, you know, I saw you putting a lot of fish in the boat and still today. Are you seeing anything different today versus, you know, 3 or 4 weeks ago?
Yeah. You know, I took about a half a day and did a little scouting, and I knew these redfish should start to show up, and we ended up finding about 3 nice little schools of redfish. You know, not big, massive wads of fish, but, you know, 30 to 40 fish in a school or a little group, and sort of moving in and out of some areas. One day here, the next day gone, type deal, and kind of got them dialed into where certain tides they should be in there, you know, provided the weather. Had some rough weather days, but what I was going to say is it seems like, believe it or not, those fish are starting to break up. We're starting to get some of these higher tides now.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've noticed, but in the last few days,
Sure.
We've got some nice high tides, and in the last few weeks, I've been fishing some of those lower tides, and these fish have been out in the open, and I think they're starting to get that mindset. The water's starting to warm back up a little bit. They're starting to creep back into the bushes. So if you don't find them in that transition period where they're moving from that sandbar trophy area up to the bushes, they can be difficult to find because they will split up. You know, instead of having 15, 20, 30 fish in a cove or in a you know, a small area, now you've got 15, 20, 30 fish down a shoreline
laid up in the
that are all feeding,
tree line.
You know, so that's sort of been the technique, is on those higher tides starting to get up into the bushes now, and then on those lower tides fishing out in the open. You know, these fish are out there roaming around. I can tell you one interesting thing that's happened to me in the last 2 days is I've been fishing some creeks, been fishing some little swash points, and these fish have all been bundled up in these creeks. And today I pulled into that creek, and there was some fish in there feeding in the creek, but a majority of the fish were out in the open. They were out on the flat. And, you know, in the last 2 weeks I haven't really caught any fish, you know, out in the potholes, out in the grassy areas on the flats. And so that was interesting to see. And they ended up more numbers of fish sitting off the trees than in the trees as far as snook went. And that was kind of interesting. It almost looked like they were trying to move out and ambush bait and
to get there before.
Yeah, because the response to chum further out on the flat versus in these creeks where I've been just getting them going crazy, it was like it just moved.
Yeah.
So you get a pop here over in the deeper little trophy area, and they're just exploding wrecking baits all down the flat. And so that tells me that those fish are starting to move out. Baits should be starting to show up.
Yeah.
You know, everything's working in the right direction.
Came across the same thing. I've been working the same little group of fish in a similar area. In if you look at like the last 4 days, you know, these tide stages, every day that high point has been later and later and later.
Mm-hmm.
So based on our schedule and what we're doing is, going back to Thursday, Friday, kind of hitting them mid-morning, before the tide peaks.
Right.
And as we're fishing that incoming tide, we're moving closer and closer and closer. Well, yesterday, I was just running behind with what we wanted to do with my group. And, with clocks ticking, we got to get in there pretty soon. I said, it might be a little early. I don't know how these fish are going to respond before, the water was at more of a low to medium height. But I was like, hey, let's go in there and check it out.
Right.
I could see going in. The water's crystal clear. Sunday, we didn't have any wind. So it made for some tough redfish conditions, maybe when you have 4 people on the boat,
sure.
plus me moving around in skinny water. But I said, let's wing it and try. And as we're coming up, and everybody's kind of getting that excitement, we bang some rods here, we slam the hatch here, and I'm like, we're done.
Right.
This bite's over. But lo and behold, put some chum out, and you see these fish they didn't hesitate. They all just came out towards it because we couldn't fish them in the trees.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't going to be there. But they dumped out and they responded to it just like you're talking about. Before long, they're eating 360 degrees around the boat,
right,
like I hadn't seen in the previous days. The previous days, fishing at higher water, we've got to be up in there.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that water's not warm enough to drive them up in there, but water height will do that.
Sure.
If they can get in there,
sure.
I think it's just something about they like that ambush point when they can, if it's an option for them.
When you get that high sun,
Mm-hmm.
we were fishing behind each other a few days ago, basically on one side of the island and the other.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that you talked about, no wind, and water clarity. Well, we had no wind, water clarity, and high sun.
Yeah.
And it just happened to be, that sun had crested over our shoulder, and in a 27-foot tower boat, trying to fish a school of redfish, it ended up, and they were, they were to the north of us, but north, west of us, and so, or northeast rather, and so everything you did it was right.
Amplified.
It was just right in their face, and so we ended up getting a few to chew, ended up breaking them both off, but it's nice to see, like I was telling you, a good little ball of fish that finally, kind of came in. I'd say that's probably the biggest school of redfish that I've seen this year for sure. And based on the way they were acting, to anybody that fishes redfish, we could not get them to stop swimming. These were open water fish, and they weren't real spooky. They do this around the moons.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen it happen in redfish tournaments. I've seen it happen where, a school of fish, they instead of hanging up and sliding off in 2s and 3s and little wolf packs, they all want to stay together, and it's just like a school of bait. One guy makes a move, they all make a move.
Mm-hmm.
One guy goes to the left, they all go to the left. And that was sort of what they were doing.
Yeah.
Almost like mullet, doing daisy chains around the oyster bar, coming back and swimming. And no matter which way we set up on them, we just couldn't get them to stop.
Right.
And we ended up getting a few to eat on cut bait. Was the way we watched the pattern of the fish, got in front of them.
So when you talk about that, so like when we're talking redfish, I had a moment over the weekend when I was coming in there, and I was with a group of guys that just wanted to soak up everything. Like they all were diehard fishermen that just haven't been able to dial in the flats fishing. That's something they're getting used to.
Right.
And as we're rolling in there, I made the comment. I said, I sure hope it's muddy in here going into where I wanted to be. And he's like, why? Why wouldn't you want the clean water? So just with that clean water, sometimes with redfish in particular, especially if they're in a group, they can get sensitive to the movement of the boat. Just everything we do in that really clear water, even your tackle can make it more challenging. And in this time of year, that's what we're dealing with. We're dealing with that clear water. So, I mean, I know what I do in those situations. What are some of the things you do differently, when you're dealing with really clear water, kind of still conditions, maybe no wind?
I mean, I'll be honest with you. The first thing that I like to do is get a few baits out.
Mm-hmm.
Generally, they're going to be a free line bait for me. I like to get those baits out, see what the fish are going to do. Especially if you have a tower and the fish are up there,
Mm-hmm.
If you're blind fishing and you're fishing a hole and you can't really see what's in front of you, but if you can see the fish and the fish are there, You know, a lot of times I won't chum right off the bat. I won't pull in
Really?
and try to chum them. I'll try to get a few baits out and just kind of see how the fish are going to respond. Now, there's a lot to that. I mean, if they're in a cove, that's a different situation. If they're running down a shoreline, I might throw a bat of chum to try to see what they're going to do. But in this particular instance, there was a school of fish that were in a small area that were just working it back and forth. And so, throw a few baits out, see how the fish respond, even to the splash of a bait.
Yeah.
You know,
I can spook them.
et cetera, et cetera. And so these fish weren't real spooky. And so we did that, and then, all right, well, let me see if I can get them to turn on. Let me see if I can get them, you know, fired up to where they're looking for baits, looking to feed. Threw some chummers out, and I mean, it was like they wanted no part of it. It was they ran from them, you know. And so at that point, in all reality, I probably should have just went, you know what, I'm going to let these guys sit. Let's go do something else for a little bit, whether it's a tide change, whether it's a water, you know,
something different
situation that's going to change in here. Those fish just didn't want to cooperate. So we sort of forced them by going to that cut. It's like you pull out all the tricks. All right, well, let's try this. Well, let's try this. Well, let's try this. Because the fish never left.
Right.
And so what we ended up doing is throwing out some cut pin fish. I got one on one side of the fish, one on the other side of the fish, where they were just sort of working back and forth.
Bump into it. And
eventually, not chumming, not messing with the fish at all, to keep them, you know, from swimming around like their mullet. And we ended up getting one to suck it up off the bottom. Just casually suck it up off the bottom. And so for me, that's one of the things. If it's clear water and you're having tough, there's plenty of times where it's clear water and they don't care.
They don't care.
I mean, they come. I mean, you're seeing them swim up right to the boat, eating chummers
eating 10 feet in front of the boat.
Right. So the chum, in my opinion, is going to tell you the attitude of the fish sometimes.
Yeah.
If you have a lot of chum and you're able to get some live bait to those fish, you know, if a couple of them break off and start feeding, it's just like snook. One of them starts feeding, two of them starts feeding, three of them starts feeding.
They get real competitive.
And the entire school, the entire school might break apart. You know, that's the one thing. And there's some areas. Andy, what's up, brother? Yeah, we I'll tell you a funny story about it. Me and Andy fishing, but you know, the school can break up. Okay, especially when you have a larger school of fish, and there's some popular places where there's bigger schools of fish. When you see the big ball of fish go by your boat, you know, that's probably not all the fish. A lot of times they're stragglers, and if you've got some chum out, you know, 10, 15, 20 of those fish can break off of that school, and you'd be able to catch 5 or 10 of them, you know, in a course of 20, 30 minutes. So
put Rodney to work.
Put Rodney to work, man. Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. But, you know, fishing redfish, fishing schools of redfish, fishing pockets, clear water, cold water, you know, hot water, it all changes the game.
Sure.
You know, and redfish are one of those fish where, like any of them, it depends on how happy they are.
Yeah.
It depends on their attitude. You know, the fish I'm talking about, somebody may have been in there and worked them for an hour before I even got
and
there.
Made them get,
you know,
like
and made them all funny. You know, who knows? But you learn over time to kind of read them, and then, like I said, I told you, I was like, I fished in there for about 45 minutes, and as hard as it was, I was like, look, guys, let's just roll.
You got to know when to.
I mean,
to
let's
fold
just
them.
roll.
Yeah.
I mean, it was cool. Saw a big school redfish, had 2 shots, missed them, and you know, cool experience.
My advice right now, you know, is or it applies most of the time, but especially with what we're dealing with now, is like I found the fish to generally be cooperative. Everything's right. You know, we got this moon, we got good moving water, but the water's clear. It is what it is. So my approach is I really try to keep my distance.
Yes.
And I want to make sure I want to test the limits of the casting distance. You know, if I can't reach them, we'll eventually move. But my goal is to stay far enough away that they're not going to feel my presence. And by the time they do work towards the boat, there's enough chum out there to get them focused on other things.
Right.
You know, we were. It's almost been like clockwork, is staying way off of them, and I can't reach them with a cast. So my clients definitely can't reach them with a cast. But I'm just asking them to be patient, because as I'm doing it, putting out 15 baits, you know, to see if I can get them to pull out towards us instead of us work up towards them. So that would be my advice, because that clear water, my boat's got a T-top, yours has got a tower. We cast shadows. Our boats are bigger. They draft skinny, but they're a bigger boat. They're the fish, when we're talking about 18 inches of water or 20 inches of water, like I've been fishing, they can feel that movement. So I'm really just trying to stay off to keep them unaware of what we're doing over here and keep a nice chain or a wall of bait between us,
right,
so that when they do come over, they just start pounding the baits. And the next thing you know, while you might start fishing the longest cast you can make, pretty soon
they're going to be right in front of the boat.
You're flipping baits like this right in front of the boat.
Right.
So that's one. If you're going to be approaching them from a boat, that's definitely what I say is come in as slow as possible, stay as far away as you can, and let those fish force you to work closer to them. But to start, as far as you can away, it's been working great.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. No, that's definitely always a good tactic, especially on a school of redfish.
Yeah.
If you've got a school, again, it goes with the attitude of the school. I've seen it go so many different ways. I've seen it
mm-hmm.
where if you're not sitting on top of them, they're not coming to you.
Right.
You got to get right on top of. I say on top of them, but to the point where
close enough where you can
you're
make
watching
eye contact.
them. You're watching them. You're literally sight fishing. So that just comes with experience.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's kind of reading those fish and trying different things. I will say, and I say it every year when we start talking about redfish, but there's been several occasions that you're fishing whitebait and they're eating a few whitebaits, you're catching some snook in the mix and blah 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 blah. You put a pinfish on, and a lot of the times, if there's a redfish around, you're going to catch him.
Oh, yeah.
And so that's one of the little, I don't even want to call it a trick, but that's just one of the little things that I'll always remember to try when you get in that mode.
Especially
of
when you
redfish.
have that mix where you're getting, you feel like there's redfish there, but you're getting a lot of snook.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes the snook just are more aggressive. I found that pinfish can do that.
Yeah, and I've always had a theory behind that. Redfish are bottom feeders,
mm-hmm.
right? And especially if they don't want to get real active, they're on the bottom. They're going to be cruising on the bottom.
Yeah, moving real slow.
And 9 times out of 10, unless you're fishing a cut bait, unless you're fishing, a split shot or something like that, then having that pinfish is putting that bait in the strike zone, and that's one of the things that we've sort of talked about for a long time is the more you can keep your bait in the strike zone of what you want to catch, your odds are going to increase.
Yeah.
And so that pinfish seems to be, one of those tickets.
Absolutely.
To catch
I slow those
catch
pinfish down a little bit, clip a tail maybe,
exactly.
not all the way. Want them to be lively.
Yep.
Yeah, it wouldn't be the same without Rick's interjection on this topic.
No.
And it looks like we're talking. Yeah, the green springtail lizards. I haven't tried them.
Rick, I thought that was classified, bro.
Yeah, you're going to have to spill the beans on where we can get those.
Yeah.
Because
Rick
I'm not seeing them at the bridge.
Rick makes them in his garage.
They're like crabs. Crabs are a really good one.
Landon,
Christy.
what's up, brother? We got you set up for Wednesday, man. We got you set up for Wednesday, brother.
Christy, crabs is one of my favorite redfish baits ever. I just wish everything else wouldn't pluck the meat off them before they get in front of a redfish.
I'll tell you what, man. Not so much in our area, and I just think that it's the popularity of bait and our abundance of bait. But the further you go south, and I'm more talking, Boca Grande, Charlotte Harbor, Punta Gorda, that's a big crab town.
Yeah, I love it.
I mean, there's a lot of guys that'll fish with crabs.
East River Crab House or whatever.
Yeah,
Lashley Crab House.
It's a staple for a lot of guys that fish down there when bait's tough, or even if they want to specifically target redfish. But
I remember the Flats Masters back in the day. That was priority, was to have crabs for that redfish tournament.
Have your crabs.
You had to.
Have your pinfish. Have your whitebait. But
yeah, it was a chore. You think bait here is a chore?
Right.
Try fishing a redfish tournament there. You've got to. All right, guys. The night before, we got to go get our crabs.
Oh,
Then in the morning, we got to go catch the white bait. Now it's time to go catch pinfish. I mean, it's a process.
It is a process, man.
I want to go back and touch on. I know we have Eric Olson, man. I haven't heard that name in a while. Looks like he's back watching live. No, I haven't been fishing north of the Campbell, man, but I know that bite is there, Eric. So, and I know you know that area well. I would encourage you. Well, I haven't been up there. I know some folks who have. If you go hit your spots, man, because the bite is definitely there.
Eric Justice, man, I have not tried that. That's interesting. So, are you saying put it in the
You're gonna have to lay that out for me, Eric.
Put it in the pantyhose and then pull it tight and tie a knot in it or something, and then put the hook in it. Is that what is that what you got going on there? Because that's interesting.
Yeah, tell us about it, man.
That's
definitely
cool.
Down to share. While he's getting that, man, I gotta give a shout out to the Tighten the Drag Foundation. I know we said we'd talk about that today.
Sure.
I got to fish that Saturday with some folks that Sheila, who organized that event with her great staff, her son Matt, his girlfriend Sydney, and everybody else that's involved. What a fun time that is.
It is. They do a great job putting on the tournament, and not only putting on a tournament, man, but providing something very valuable to the community.
Absolutely. I mean, there's a lot of good calls out there. I'm not, one's not over another. This is one I can definitely get on board with, especially being involved with it every year. You see the result. I mean, shout out to some of the other guides, Lori Deaton, Greg Leonard, Brett Norris, James Lowe, who am I forgetting? Ryan Harrington. All of us were out there, and some of those folks got to take out some injured anglers or that are dealing with a spinal cord injury.
I saw
really
Frankie
cool.
Diaz in
Frankie
that one
Diaz,
too.
yes, he was in that one too. Caught up with him. Saw James Garrison out there with his Flats
What's up,
Mafia
James?
crew. You got to confirm, man. Did you get the snook closest to 30 inch or not? But it was a great time. I think it was Eric Whitted and his team that won the Open Division with their overall slam. The guys from Big Storm Brewing had a good showing. They were 5th or 6th. And Bull Bay Rods, Jake Fernandez and those guys, I think they actually both had 80-inch slams, but there were 7 slams over 80 inches, I think. So the fishing was definitely good. I'll tell you this, the people who fished overnight, it paid off.
Big snook?
Oh, yeah. Everybody was
what was the big snook? What did they get?
38 inches. They won a $200 gift card to our store, Tampa Fishing Outfitters. So, and actually they came in today for the first time ever. So yeah, it was cool. They came in and they were appreciative of the event and our involvement in it with Tampa Fishing Outfitters. But
right on.
Yeah, Sheila, man, great event. I've already seen some people saying how fun that was to get out there and do that. Yeah, the event is cool. The fishing's cool. I like hanging out afterwards. It's a great, at the Magnuson, you pull your boat up on the beach and big party out there. So it was cool. James Garrett threw all the 45 inches back just to stay close to 30.
That's my boy.
That paid off. That definitely paid off.
That's how you do it right there.
I think my group actually ended with Sheila just texted me a little bit saying we had a prize. I had to get out of there, but I don't know how we finished. We got on some good snook and some really good redfish. I couldn't pull my people away from the redfish to really go concentrate on trout, which they were okay with. But hey, we had a good time. So good time, Sheila. Looking forward to the event in. Did you see Kelly watch? No, I didn't get to see that. But yeah, looking forward to the one in the fall. I'll definitely continue to be a part of that.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
So, hey, I know we got to take a break, but when we come back, guys, we're going to be talking. Travis just had some new rods put together from Bull Bay we want to show off. So stay tuned. We'll be right back around the corner, and we'll see you then. All right, guys, we're back. Tampa Fishing Outfitters Live Fishing Report. You've got myself, Captain James Beers. Captain Rick and Captain Jason aren't with us today. We're expecting them back, though, hopefully next week. And even Travis abandoned me. Now all he cares about is Stealth Sniper Bull Bay rods. So that's what we've got in the house, man. So Travis had a big old, you-know-what-eating grin on his face when he got out of the truck when he pulled up the store today, because – I could still smell little rod building components on there.
Yeah, man.
Those are hot off the press.
Hot off the press.
So, I mean.
That's the tarpon rod.
That's the new tarpon rod. So tell us what you've got here, why you've got what you've got, because the Bull Bay rod lineup is extensive. Although what you're holding there is, without a doubt, our #1 seller. So tell us a little bit about what you got going on, what 2 rods you've got.
So
what they're for? What are you doing with them?
Yeah, so I've been with these guys for a long time. Been using the Bull Bay rods pretty much since they started. Well, since they started.
Yeah.
But I don't know, probably I guess 3 years ago or so, I got with Dustin and wanted to put production rods on the boat for all the clients.
Yeah.
And so we went with these sniper rods, and over the years they've just the response I get back from clients. They're very light, very sensitive, very durable.
Yeah.
As a charter rod. These go in the hands of a 3-year-old, 4-year-old, 5-year-old, up to a 60, 70-year-old that may not be as agile moving around the boat.
Yeah.
Bending that rod onto the boat on a snook or a big redfish or something like that. And so I got with them, and I got 8 more. For this year, so we're doing these again.
And you're going with the Stealth Sniper comes in a medium fast and a medium heavy fast.
Right.
The medium rating, and just so you know, all the sniper rods, guys, they're all going to be 7.6. So that's like a staple in their lineup when it comes to the sniper. For now. All right, but they're all going to be 7.6. So you've got 2 action choices. This one's a 6 to 12 medium.
Right.
We're going to talk about in a second why you go with this one, and I think I know why.
Yeah.
But there's also an 8 to 17. Now, a lot of other companies you might find they rate their medium 8 to 17. I think the 8 to 17 in Bull Bay is a true medium heavy, and I think their 6 to 12 is a true medium. The other cool thing about this rod, this blank, this blank is amazing, but not everybody's a fan of this cork or this foam. Whatever setup, they give you at least 3 different handle and cork arrangements that I'm aware of. So this is the Stealth version, all foam, all blacked out.
The EVA foam.
EVA foam.
I like the all blacked out look. I also like, for me personally, I like the EVA foam.
Me too.
For me, I think it holds up a little better in the conditions. I've got a lot of cork rods, and they chip.
Yeah.
Sometimes when you're pulling them out of the rod holder.
And with how often we're using them, they're just getting dirty. They're over time.
They get dirty. But like I said, the biggest thing that I had is them chipping, or you get the guy on the boat and he wants to pick at the cork, and he picks a hole in the middle of your rod. I've had that one happen.
You got to put him on fish.
You put him in timeout. No, so I do like the EVA cork. I mean the EVA foam stuff.
But it is available. Like if somebody wanted to get it, does have a similar setup to this, where it's the split grip with cork inserts.
Right.
And then one that I know a good friend of mine, Ty Colby, really likes is the full cork. And we have that available as well. So scales, man, I'll tell you, I don't know how scales could be worse than anything on cork. So the foam's got to be better on scales than the cork.
Yeah, I will tell you one thing, and Bull Bay will tell you the same thing. And one of the I've got 8 or 9 of these rods already.
Yeah.
That I'll normally take 6 rods on the boat, inshore rods for a charter, and so I've got a handful, 3 or 4 that are just spares.
Yep.
That when one of them an eye breaks or a guide breaks or the tip busts off,
something happens.
We swap them out. We fix those, and I get another one back. But what I've noticed over the years is the more exposure that any rod has to the sun, you're going to start to see that top coat start to break down. You're going to start to see the color of this rod fade. You're going to start to see the actual fiber in the rod start to show a little through. One of the neat things that those guys have showed me that I never really used before is cleanse oil. And you can take a rag or you take some cleanse oil and rub this entire rod down with cleanse
They
oil.
showed me that too.
And it'll bring them right back to life.
Yep. I think that's what actually spurred cleanse oil. Have you seen that they make the wipes now?
No, I
didn't.
Dude,
they're jam up.
I'll have to try those out.
That'll
have to be
packs.
That'll have to be what I need.
You can bust out a pack before a trip,
right,
and do all your rods,
right,
and not be all dirty and not be all oily.
So I've sort of added that to my maintenance, on the rods and reels side of things, is rubbing these down with cleanse oil about every month or so is what I've been trying to do it, and it really does make a difference. It makes the rods look good, but also like Steven was saying, anything on there, it'll get it off.
Yeah,
you'll see it come off on the rag. Any salt, debris, scales, stuff like that.
Now, why? I mean, I 6 to 12. Why is that your choice? I think a lot of people might think that's undergun.
No, I've caught 40-inch snook on these rods.
Yeah.
It's all. It's not the rod. It's the guy behind it. What is it? It's not the arrow.
It's not the arrow.
Indian.
It's the Indian.
I will say that casting wise, and holding a rod for the length of time that most of the clients do, not fishing every day, I try to go as light as I can. This is an extremely light rod.
Yeah, it is.
But also the backbone on these rods is incredible. I mean, you can bend this rod over on itself. It's not going to do anything. So you got the sensitivity, you've got the backbone.
Yeah.
But also, I throw 10-pound braid.
Yeah.
And these rods and these guides, these Fuji K guides, shoot braid incredibly.
Yeah.
They're just it's bar none the way to go if you're going to be using braid.
Yeah. And they're using those these style guides in all their rods now in their spinning variety, which this is definitely going to benefit any braid fisherman, especially if you fish light braid, 10 or 15. It definitely makes a difference. I like the 6 to 12 too, so that's what I would choose. And what I like about it is the softer tip.
Yeah.
You're right. This rod, the bottom 2/3 of it has tons of backbone in it, so I'm not afraid of what's going to be on the other end of it. But when we're talking the variety of baits that we fish throughout the year, whether it's a free line shrimp or the small white bait that, hey, there's a lot of small white bait now. Or jig, artificial. This is going to give you, I feel like, a better load when you try to cast a variety of baits.
Absolutely.
Now, the medium heavy is a great rod too, but for me, I consider that a bigger bait rod, not a bigger fish rod.
Well, I mean, like, and I've got rods like that, and the way I do it is, and somebody, it was funny. My guy's on the boat today. He asked me, he goes, "Hey, Cap, can I ask a personal question?" I was like, "Yeah, man, what's up?" No. He goes, "How many rods do you think you have? Are you like 100 or less than 100?" And I was like, nobody's ever asked me that question.
Yeah.
And so I started thinking about it. I was like, I'm probably sitting at like 40 rods, maybe 30 to 40 rods combined. My grouper stuff. I got some kingfish rods.
Yeah.
I've got some trolling rods.
Tarpon.
I've got tarpon rods, and then I've got an inshore fleet of rods. But in my inshore stuff, I've got 10-pound, what I call like 10-pound class gear, which is this stuff.
Yeah.
And then I've got 20-pound, which is that tweener.
Yeah.
That's for those bigger snook,
Yeah.
those bigger fish when you're targeting them, or you're fishing around docks, and you don't have the time that maybe this rod's gonna take to bust that fish up out of there. And so that's when I'll sort of use that tweener rod, and then from there it's basically right up to something like this. Move into the 8-foot spinning stuff.
Sure.
Because you can really do that with one of these types of rods.
Yeah.
You may be a little overkill, but it's better to be a little more than a little less. So moving along to this guy. This rod right here, it's a do-all rod.
Yeah.
Snapper fishing, mackerel fishing,
Snook,
anything inshore,
artificial,
juvenile tarpon. Oddly enough, we have a guy on here, John Uterwick. He's caught tarpon with me on some of these rods, and there's another guy that watches the show, and I'm sorry I don't remember his name, but we were snapper fishing last year, and he caught like a 90-pound tarpon on a 7'6" bull bay inshore rod on a 3000 series spinning reel.
It could be done. Kevin, who just joined, we caught about a 55-pound Kobe on that same setup.
Yeah.
I mean, so they can handle it.
It can be done. It can be done. But this is what I'm most excited about, and then we'll kind of roll on through here. But this is what I'm most excited about. This is my first year using these rods for tarpon.
The tarpon rod, the tarpon assault.
This is their tarpon rod. And another question that somebody asked me the other day was, I was doing a seminar and they asked me about the rods and do I order custom rods? I've got some custom rods, that Dustin and those guys have made for me. But all the rods that I'm going to use on a charter are all production, stock items. And I sort of do that on purpose. I mean, one is to test them for those guys, to give them legitimate feedback.
Yeah.
If I say, hey, build me this, custom Lamborghini over here, that's different than what goes into the hands of the regular consumer. And so we like to use what's on the shelf.
Right.
And I say that because a lot of customers that'll go fishing with me say, hey, man, I like that rod.
Where can
how can I get one? And it's nice because it's a stock item. Same with these tarpon rods.
Yeah. Now, when you say, I don't want to downplay words like stock and production, because when you go and compare this rod to others, I mean, it's hard for me not to call this a custom rod. They just produce them in this manner.
You're
you know
right.
what I mean?
Nomenclature is key on that, I guess. But I would just say a standard rod.
Yeah, the same rod you're going to go downstairs and be able to get on our shelf.
Standard features. Standard
to
features.
To answer your question, Eric, I think Aaron already did. This rod he's got that he's going to go and throw on his boat, same rod downstairs.
Right.
So yeah, you're right about that.
That's one of the cool things about this.
They just happen to use the quality components and everything that you'd probably go to a custom builder to try and get done.
Right.
It's already in it.
Exactly. That's where I'm going with it. Is there's nothing on this rod that I would say, hey, Dustin, man, can you add this little cool thing?
Maybe
for
color.
Me? Or like put my name on it or something. You know what I mean? But now we're talking just make it look fancy. But so anyway, I'm excited to use these rods. I'll give you guys some feedback honestly when I get them out there and yanked on. But I'm gonna pair these with a 10,000 series spinning reel.
Yeah. And
they're gonna have 80-pound braid on.
The meat
like we were talking about.
Yeah.
One of the things that I'd like to try to do this year is we've hooked and caught a lot of big tarpon, and I'm going to play a little testing with some stuff and see how quick we can get these fish into the boat.
Nice.
We've been punked quite a few times on some long fish.
Haven't we all? I saw you out there last year for a few hours with a fish.
Man, and it wasn't light gear. I mean, you're 60-pound braid, 8-foot rod. It's just it's a powerful fish, and you can pair the right equipment. You can't go too big on a tarpon.
Yeah.
That's the thing. I've had guys say, oh well, I'll just use this thing, and they bring out the broomstick.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, you're probably gonna bust that fish off. Tarpon it's a sensitive fish to really land and fight with.
Yeah.
100%. You do want a soft tip. You don't want a broomstick to where when that fish goes nuts, you're just a pillar standing there.
Yeah.
You need some flex.
You need a little bit of because you can't get that stretch from the braid, and sometimes that stretch can be your friend. So you look to the rod to give you that
rod reel combination between your drag system on the rod, and so it's a landing tarpon fast or quick is a major gear component.
Absolutely.
That's a big part of it. Not to mention the guy cranking the reel.
Sure. 100%.
But excited to use those.
Yeah.
If anybody has any questions about the Bull Bay rods, feel free to lean on me. Feel free to lean on James.
Mm-hmm.
You can get into the store here and get them here.
You know
what? I know that you guys. What I just found out is Tampa Fishing Outfitters is one of the flagship.
Can you change that?
What's that? It's the flagship location, sales location for Bull Bay rods, and I know that you guys are fixing to have quite the inventory and selection here.
We already do. So we're already at Tampa Fishing Outfitters, and there may be others like this, but we carry every rod they make.
Right.
We even carry some they don't.
Right.
We've had some. We're big in the bass market, so we've actually had them take some of what we've seen in their blanks. The 7.6 medium heavy sniper blank being one of them, we've actually requested that rod to be built in a bait casting outfit. Split grips, full core, you name it, we've made the variations on it. So there's going to be some that, to my knowledge, aren't available anywhere else. Now you can go to Bull Bay and have it built, but we've said we like this about this blank. We wish we could have this in a bait casting format, same with some assault grouper rods. So it's been a great partnership. And all this Bull Bay talk, I was So I talked to Joy, our store manager,
Mm-hmm.
and going into the month of April, there's going to be quite a special going on when it comes to outfitting new combos. So, I mean, that's a perfect segue for the entire month of April. And it doesn't start till next Monday, which is when I was going to release it. But since we're talking Bull Bay,
Sure.
us being one of the biggest retailers, for the entire month of April, when you package a rod and a reel, it doesn't have to be Bull Bay. I recommend that it's Bull Bay, but it doesn't have to be. You get 15% off the combo.
Nice.
So, I mean, you're talking, by the time you go and throw, I think the price point on the Stealth Sniper is $179. Let's call it $180. It's right around there.
Right.
By the time you pair it with a reel that's about the same price point, whether it's a Shimano, a Penn, a Daiwa, a Quantum, a Florida Fishing Products, whatever it is, you're probably talking another $150 to $200 on top of that.
You're leaning on that $400 edge.
You're saving,
not to
$60.
Mention, not to mention, you have to put some line on that thing to use it.
Yeah, you do have to put line on it. So that'll offset the cost of the braid and maybe some leader and whatever else you want to throw on it. But I'm excited because something we've been talking about is doing like a month-long special like that, and spring is definitely the time to do it. I know for me, I go into the spring, and as we move into tarpon season, I get excited about gear. Like, I get anxious to, and I'm probably doing some rod. I've been talking to Dustin too about doing some of the spinning tarpon rods, because I get excited about new gear. I love having new gear, new reels, new rods.
What you find is it's like a it's like my wife and shoes, man.
Mm-hmm.
And I've got an office at the house, and it's just littered with rods. And why can't you get rid of that one? Why can't you get rid of that one? Well, that one I really like to kingfish with.
Yeah.
That one I really like to bottom grouper fish with that rod.
It's fun to go toss this at cobia with this rod.
And you sort of have these little things mapped out. The difference in being a fishing guide is you never just have one.
Yeah.
So everything I have, I've got like 2 to 4 of them, because I need at least 2.
Yeah.
At least 2. I've got some really neat 7-foot stuff. Which and Eric, by the way, Bull Bay and Nasi is what I run. That's what I run on charters. I run the Bull Bay sniper rod with the 3000 Shimano Nasi, and like I can tell you that at least since I've been running those, probably close to 300 trips, maybe something like that. And I think I've had 2 of them. Be honest, I've had 2 of them that have had some issues.
I can tell you in 300 fishing trips to have 2 rods.
Yeah, no, I've had 2 reels. I've had 2 reels that have had some issues with them, and the reels what happened is drag washers.
Mm-hmm. Stop catching so many fish.
But whether it's a fish that burns you up, or whether it's water getting in there, the rods or the reels are rinsed every single day. So what I put through those reels and what they get put through. Now, granted, I've got 8 of those combos, and not every one of them get used.
They're not always in the
single
rotation.
Trip.
Yeah, but still, when we're talking, I look at it like this. I look at, let's say, somebody who's not doing what we're doing, right? They go fishing every weekend.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say once a weekend. That's 50 times a year. We're talking 300. So we're talking about 6 years worth of use and abuse.
Oh yeah, no.
So let's even say they're in a rotation and maybe only
Well, it's about a year and a half.
Yeah.
I got them. About a year and a half ago or so.
Hey John, to answer your question, the medium all-around inshore rod he's talking about. This one is the Bull Bay Sniper. The one he had built is the Stealth Sniper, which is like that blacked out look with the EVA foam. Comes in cork, comes in full cork, so a lot of different ways you can do that, but it's a 6 to 12 medium fast sniper rod from Bull Bay. That's the one he's talking about. And
this rod, what a lot of people don't know, or some people do know if they've been around and kind of heard of these guys, but back in the day they had the Senzi grip, right? And it was a piece that went on the top. It was made out of abalone shell.
Yeah.
These rods, these sniper rods, are in my mind a derivative of those original.
Yeah, I remember the
Senzi grip style rods.
They used to market the kayak rod with the short butt.
Yep. And so that's, to me, when I went to pick a rod to put on the boat, and to get a fleet of rods built, I actually went in to have custom rods built, and I started looking, and I went, dude, let me see one of those. And I go, man, this is what I'm looking for. But for me, the nice thing is too, you bang a rod, you break a rod, you break an eye. It's not waiting for a rod to get built per my specs.
Yeah.
No, it's a rod that it's a standard rod they make. It comes out out the production floor, comes right to me. We swap them out, et cetera, et cetera. So
no doubt.
it's a good way to go with a rod. Like you said, you get the custom quality of a rod in more of a production style, setting. So
definitely, guys. There's a lot of talk. We've been talking Bull Bay rods. There's a lot of questions about it. I hope we got to everybody. But if we didn't, man, feel free to reach out to Travis, myself. Come in the store. The whole staff is knowledgeable about them. They're nuts about them, to be honest with you. And there's probably no better time if you want to try one out. Pair it up with a reel, get 15% off the whole deal. I mean, that's going to be I challenge you to find a better deal.
Right.
And don't go to Amazon. Who you helping there, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Can't get a Bull Bay on Amazon.
I was going to say, I don't even think you can get a Bull Bay on Amazon. We're exclusive around here, baby.
Well, cool. Well, that's all we've got for today, guys. We're at that hour mark. But, feel free. If you're watching this show on the recording and you want to drop a question in there, we try to check back to it or send us a message, whether it's questions on what we talked about regarding bait. I know some guys were late logging in. Mm-hmm. We're always available to help you out there. If it's questions about the red fishing tactics we talk about or we discussed, give us a shout, man. We're always down to talk, and, we love this stuff. So that's it. You got anything else?
No, man. I'll just say if you're looking to get out and do some fishing, now's the time.
Yeah.
Do it now before it gets really, really hot. I know a lot of folks are on spring break. I think we got a week or two left to spring break.
Yeah.
Me personally, I don't have a lot of
I've got 2 days available this week.
So James may be your go-to. Unfortunately, like I said, I don't have many days available. I've got maybe in a couple weeks I've got some a couple afternoons. But anyhow, with that being said, if you do want to get out and do some fishing, guys, give us a call. Whether I can take you out, James can take you out, Rick can take you out, Jason can take you out, and if not, we've got a whole network of guys that we'd love to get you hooked up with. So anyway, guys, we appreciate you watching for another week of Tampa Fishing Outfitters Live Fishing Report. Until next week, tight lines and catch them up.
All right, see you guys.